Konig, when are you going to make two-piece wheels? Konig, why don't you make three-piece wheels? Well, we're going to address all of that, and we're going to break down some of the differences, as well as all the pros and cons of single-piece, two-piece, and three-piece wheels. So go grab some popcorn and strap in. We're going to give you all the ins and outs of multi-piece wheels. So every wheel, regardless of construction, has pros and cons. And if you've been thinking about getting a set of multi-piece wheels, but aren't exactly sure if they're right for you, you came to the right place. All right, let's start with the obvious place, and that's a single-piece wheel. Now, a one-piece wheel is essentially going to be made from a single piece. Now, this could come in a few different forms. First form could be something that's cast, right? So if it comes from a single mold, or it's going to be flow formed, or it's going to be forged, these are things that are generally going to be in a one-piece construction. But overall, what you should know about single-piece wheels comparatively to multi-piece wheels is they're going to have the strongest overall construction. And that's really due to there's really no things like seams or connections where there could be more failure points. Now, this is also going to be the construction that will generally result in the lowest possible weight. You might be saying, well, I think forged wheels, multi-piece wheels, I see them on race cars, and you do, and I'll explain that a little bit more as we get down below, but mostly when you look at wheels as a whole, you have to understand that a single piece wheel is going to have the potential to be the absolute lightest. All right, and the last point that we're going to kind of speak about really quick in a single piece wheel is that generally these wheels are going to be the most cost effective and the most widely available. So when it comes down to two-piece wheels, there essentially is going to be two pieces, and I think that's pretty self-evident because we call them two-piece wheels. However, generally you're going to see them in two different forms. It's either going to be welded or they're going to be bolted. Now, when they're bolted versus welded, there is going to be some pros and cons. So we'll go through those again a little bit down further. Now, generally the two-piece wheels, the main advantage here is that you're going to have some ability to do some customization. Now, maybe that's with width, maybe it's with lip size. It also could be with something like offset or trying to get a specified caliper clearance. Again, multi-piece wheels really shine in this area with that modularity. However, you need to know that they could be slightly heavier, especially since most of them are going to be bolted together, not welded. And when we talk about two-piece wheels, they're not going to be as customizable as three-piece wheels. And again, we'll go through that, just hang out. All right, so let's start talking about what three-piece wheels are. Essentially, just like two-piece wheels, three-piece wheels will now be made in three pieces. Now, generally these pieces are going to include the center, the lip, and the barrel. Now, to hold a three-piece wheel together, generally these are going to be connected with bolts, which means that we somehow now need to seal this whole thing together. And generally the way this is done is essentially going to be with a type of silicone. That means the pieces are bolted together with hardware, and then afterward they're going to put this silicone sealant along the inner bead to kind of mate everything together and keep the air inside the wheel. So you might be saying to yourself, why all this complexity? What is the major thing here that a three-piece wheel offers? And that has to do with the fact that a three-piece wheel really is fully customizable. And this allows you to also sometimes get into making things where you have some really wild looking wheels because you can customize the color and the finishes on every single piece of these wheels. This modularity is also going to offer some major benefits when it comes down to replacement parts. For example, if you were to damage, let's say the inner barrel, the lip, or if you were to want to do something really cool or different, maybe you want a different lip size, maybe you put on another wide body kit and it's wider than you did before, you want the widest lip. If you want to be able to do some really cool things with the center or something that you hadn't done before, you can change these pieces in and out. And if you send them to a lot of these manufacturers, they can go ahead and figure out the best combination and be able to get you something that really matches the specifics that you want, because it's modular. Which usually brings us to the next point, that these wheels generally have a much higher premium feel and a higher end type of look, because there is no getting around it. When you look at a three-piece wheel that has been highly customized, you will know right away, even if you're not a car person, that this wheel has something different than everybody else has. And that's why a lot of times people spend so much money to get a set of three-piece wheels. So we talk about multiple piece bolted wheels, two-piece, three-piece, doesn't really matter. We have to think about the fact that these wheels are generally going to weigh more because you now have to add all that hardware to hold the thing together. There may be some exceptions to this, especially when you start to get to certain forged elements, but a lot of times what's going to end up happening is on some of the wheels, especially the ones that are more affordable, when you start to save a little bit of weight, they're going to use something like an aluminum spun barrel. It's really soft. If you look at it wrong, I promise you it will bend. And again, this is something that a single piece wheel doesn't have to deal with. which means that it gives it the opportunity to be lighter. So another con, like I mentioned before, with all that sealing stuff has to do with air leaks. Let me tell you how annoying it is, and I've had 3-piece wheels before, I can speak from experience. When it gets to a point where every time you go to your car, you have to actually check the air pressure before you drive, because if not, you're probably gonna get one of those annoying TPMS lights that's gonna show up just because you happen to own a set of multiple piece wheels. This is something that you have to factor in, but it doesn't usually happen at first. At first, everything's fine, right? It's all glorious. Everything's got elasticity, the sealant is sealing like it should, but as you go on, it starts to become a little bit more brittle and starts to recede a little bit, and then you start to deal with these little bit of air leaks, which turn into a bit of air leaks, which turn into really annoying air leaks, which require you to have the wheel resealed. So that is why I'm putting it in a con. All right, so the next 3 cons are all lumped together. However, let's talk about durability. They're generally going to be less durable than a traditional single-piece wheel, and that's because of the fact that there's going to be more failure points. The more pieces, the more things you have to bolt together, the more areas there are for failure points to occur. Coming off that durability, now we're thinking about things like maintenance, right? Maintenance is another thing that becomes a con because of the fact that you have bolts that you need to check, make sure that they're periodically tightened, re-torque. Sometimes it will require, obviously, a little bit of resealing, or it could become one of those things where you have to replace. So again, we're talking about maintenance here because you have to maintain the bolts and you have to maintain that seal. A lot of maintenance things going on here, which then brings up the complexity of repair, because even if you were to have a piece that you need to replace, not every wheel and tire shop is equipped or has the skill level to be able to do this correctly. Now, you may be saying, well, how hard is it? Because all you have to do is put the bolts in and tighten them to whatever they say to tighten them to. Not exactly, because there is a very, very fine line to get that wheel perfectly centric before you bolt it together. I will tell you from experience, if you have tighten this wheel down and you're close but no cigar, the amount of vibration that you can feel and the fact that this vibration could change and kind of show up at different speed levels that you could chase forever and ever and ever can be extremely annoying. What I will say with this is it's complex, it's different. It's gonna be something that these guys generally at the tire shops don't have experience dealing with every single day. So you're gonna wanna find a place that has a little bit more knowledge in dealing with these things specifically so that you don't have to deal with some of the issues that come along with them. And I know we already talked about cost, but I have to throw this into the con category because as much as replacing a piece could be a pro, having to replace a piece of a multiple piece wheel generally is a very expensive process and often, like I said before, rivals the cost of a single piece wheel, sometimes even a single piece forged wheel. Keep that in mind when you're picking your multiple piece wheels. Is this thing for you? Is this something that I want to deal with? Or do I just want the lightest, strongest, least hassle wheel that I can find? Because that is overwhelmingly going to be a single piece wheel, regardless of construction. Because even in a single piece wheel, now you can pick the price point and the construction that you want based off the use. You're gonna be doing something really aggressive in motorsports, you want the lightest possible wheel, the strongest possible wheel, get a forged wheel. You want something that's gonna be the best bang for your buck, that's gonna allow you to have extra strength in the barrel, extra rigidity, be really cost effective, but also give you kind of all the best of all the worlds. Flow formed wheels are where it's at. And if you're looking for something that's just in the replacement, looking for some style change, looking to have something that's gonna be easily available, easy to change out if you happen to damage one, and be most cost effective, then that is going to be your traditional cast wheels. Either way, they're one-piece wheels, they're single-piece wheels. All wheel and tire professionals will know what to do with these wheels. They know how to balance them, maintain them, and they know what to look for. This is gonna be your easiest and most effective option. So that's it. We hope that we gave you a lesson here on one-piece, two-piece, and three-piece wheels. We hope you found it informative. Obviously, with this topic, there's gonna be a lot more to cover, and there's gonna be a lot of opinions. So I'm sure that you'll go ahead and fight me down below in the comments section, but if you do want us to have us answer any other questions, you can go ahead and throw those down below. And there are a lot of good manufacturers out there, so I don't want to paint the picture that it's all doom and gloom when it comes to multiple piece wheels, but I will say it is for the right person. Make sure you're that right person. If you're not, just go ahead and get a single piece wheel. Trust me, you will not regret it. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you in the next one.